Hey, everybody. So, I've been having some conversations with peers, friends, entrepreneurs, and some insiders around various parts of the AI industry or AI adjacent industries. And so, there's three things that I really want to talk about today. So, one is the Gartner hype cycle. Number two is the friction of AI adoption. And number three, the impact that this is going to have on jobs, at least for the foreseeable future over the next 1 to 2 years. Beyond that, it's going to be a little bit harder to predict. So first and foremost, I just want to get this out of the way. According to some of the insiders that I've talked to, we are absolutely entering into a downturn of the Gartner hype cycle in terms of artificial intelligence, meaning that we're at the peak of inflated expectations and we're heading into the trough of disillusionment. Now, what this means is that you're going to see a little bit less news about artificial intelligence. You're going to see more negative news. So there's more negative news coming out of places like Forbes and other places where a lot of business people and finance people are saying, see, AI is just like every other tool that has, failed to live up to its hype. Now, some people are just negative Nancy's, and they're making their own money and their own fame by just saying the same thing over and over again, which is that AI is BS and that sort of stuff. But at the same time, the kind of the unspoken part or the silent majority is also kind of titrating their expectations around artificial intelligence. Now, I was one of the people who, because put it this way, I've never lived through a hype cycle in my career. In my IT career, I was there with virtualization when that came up, but I was only starting my career as virtualization was coming out of the trough of disillusionment. And so, I was in high school when the dot-com revolution happened. So I only saw it from an outside perspective back then. So I was wrong. I bought into the hype, and I should have known better, but I didn't, because you live and learn. So we're going into this trough of disillusionment. A few things we expect might happen. One, there's going to be fewer VC, so venture capital dollars going into this. That's not saying that it's going to dry up completely, but you're going to see less investment, fewer grants, those sorts of things. And again, a big major cooling off. Now, there's going to be a lot of negativity out there, and there's not really anything we can do about that. So, talking about the next part of this, which is the friction of adoption. So one thing that has been really kind of stark when I've been talking to people is, okay, AI models, the context windows are getting gigantic, they're getting very intelligent, they're getting very fast, and they're also getting much cheaper. I was reminded during one of these conversations just how expensive GPT-3 used to be. I think it was like 12 cents per 1,000 tokens or something like that, or 10,000 tokens. It is literally thousands of times cheaper now today. And then you look at the mid-size models and the smaller models that are even faster and even cheaper, and they're still much smarter than GPT-3 was 2-3 years ago. And they're, you measure them in the millions of tokens, like $1 per million tokens or less. And so we're at this point where models are getting smarter and faster and cheaper. And, at the same time, they're like, why are we not seeing it deployed everywhere? And so this is where the friction is coming in. And one way that I like to think about this is it's like you have a really smart brain, but it's in a jar. These models don't have hands, they don't have eyes, they don't have ears, they don't really have a good way of interacting with the outside world unless you give it an API. Now, to be fair, there are a lot of things out there in the world that are driven by API. And if you're not familiar with what API means, it means Application Programming Interface. So basically, one program has a phone number that it can use to call up another program and say, hey, I need you to do this for me. That's what an API is. It is how computers talk to each other over networks or over the internet. But one of the biggest problems is getting the information into the model, getting the instructions and creating the cognitive architecture so that the models know what to do, and then getting the instructions back out of the model. Now, this is what I and a bunch of other people have worked on, such as with the ACE framework, Agent Forge, Microsoft's AutoGen framework. And I've actually got a guest coming up in the coming weeks that is working on a commercial agent platform. So that'll be a very interesting conversation. So stay tuned for that. But at the same time, while you have these really intelligent models that are getting faster, cheaper, and smarter, they're kind of like in their own. And this really does remind me of a lot of technological innovations that have happened over the last couple decades, where you have this cool new thing, but it's not really integrated yet. And a prime example is Bluetooth. I remember reading the IEEE announcement or article or whatever when Bluetooth was announced, and nobody knew what to do with it. I remember some of the articles were saying, your dishwasher is going to be able to talk to your refrigerator, and everyone's like, what? Why? Who cares? So the technology, the Bluetooth technology was created before we really knew how to integrate it. And now it's like, oh, this is good for headphones. This is good for discovering smart devices on your network. Like I've got a smart scale that connects via Bluetooth and, all those other things and, Xbox controllers. There's a whole lot of stuff that Bluetooth enabled that you really couldn't have predicted or foreseen. Or if you did predict it, you didn't really have a good way of knowing exactly how it was going to be integrated. And that's the phase that we're at with artificial intelligence. It is definitely useful. I and millions of other people around the world use AI every day. Now, some of these tools are very easy to use kind of on their own. Midjourney, it spits out images. Great. You go to a website, it gives you an image, you're done. It gives you, a file to download, and you move on. Likewise, chatbots are a pretty complete product. You have a chatbot, you talk to a thing. It's basically like interactive Google, but a little bit smarter. But there's a whole bunch of other use cases that we're going to be talking about as I have more and more guests on the show, where it's like, okay, integration and workflows and pipelines, a little bit harder to set up. And really the thing that I'm hearing over and over again is that AI is really just a new tool in the technology toolbox. It expands the capabilities of software. It doesn't replace software yet, despite what some people are saying. And let me just take a step back. I absolutely believe that in 10, 20, 50 years, we're not really going to need software in the way that we understand it. I think it was, Demis Hassabis said that the future is on-demand bespoke software. Absolutely. Polymorphic applications. I made a video about that last year. That is the way that we're going, but we've got a lot of infrastructure to build. And so it's really that infrastructure piece, the architecture piece, and the interface piece, the APIs. So between the cognitive architectures that we're developing, between the infrastructure that needs to be put in place, another way of thinking about infrastructure is like when Tesla first released electric cars and there was nowhere to charge them. That was actually an infrastructure problem. You could have, the perfect electric car, but if you couldn't charge it anywhere, you had to stay within a 1 to 200 mile radius of home. Same problem for hydrogen cars, and a big reason that the hydrogen economy never took off is because the infrastructure overhaul was going to be ludicrously expensive. So we've got cognitive architectures to build. We've got AI infrastructure to build. And I don't mean like data center infrastructure. That's another thing that we need to build. But I mean the ecosystem, the technology ecosystem. It's like you drop Bluetooth on the world 20 years ago. Nobody knows how to use it. It takes time to find uses and find ways of integrating. And then finally the interfaces, the APIs. Because a lot of APIs right now are programmatic APIs, or they're visual APIs for humans. That's what a website is. A website is a human API. Now, of course, I know that one thing that OpenAI is working on is a desktop version of ChatGPT, and I don't know if it's out yet, or I think it's out in alpha or private beta or whatever. But the idea is that you give these AI models a keyboard and a mouse, and a monitor, and so that they can interact with the internet and interact with applications the same way that a human can. That might be the way forward. Who knows? I think that there is some merit in that convergence where you have, basically AI models interacting with electronic information and electronic work the same way that humans do. Shared workspaces. In the same way that, having robots working alongside humans in factories could be good as long as the robots are compliant and, can navigate around obstacles and that sort of thing. So let me touch on the final point, which is jobs. So right now, in all the conversations that I've had, there is a pretty strong consensus that human jobs, some sectors are obviously going to go away. If you're in the digital art space, you're at pretty high risk. If you're in the digital music space, you're at pretty high risk. If you're in copywriting, again, you're at pretty high risk. But and to a silver lining on that is I've even seen some clues, some articles and murmurings out there that a lot of the shops that fired all their copywriters are having to bring them back because guess what? They still need a human who understands the business to do all the editing and all that other fun stuff. And we saw that pendulum, that tick-tock pendulum, swing with offshoring as well. So if you're not familiar with offshoring, basically in the late 90s and early 2000s, globalism was all the rage, and it was, just ship all the jobs off to Malaysia, to India, to China, to Taiwan, and it'll be way cheaper. Well, guess what? After about 10 to 20 years of that, a lot of companies say, you know what? The cultural barriers, the language barriers, the time barriers, it's just not worth it. And so now we're seeing an onshoring trend. Likewise, I think that a lot of companies are going to go through that cycle where they say, fire everyone and just have AI do it. And then they're going to realize, well, we went a little bit too far. We went a little bit too crazy with AI. So let's pull it back. Now, again, this is all just talking about in the next 2 to 5 years maximum, because again, by the 2 to 5 year point, we're probably going to have AGI, if not ASI, who knows? And then you're going to have superhuman abilities, and all bets are off as to what changes then. We'll address that bridge when we get to it. But in the short term, what I'm hearing is AI needs to be considered a basic business competence. So that means if you're not using chatbots on a daily basis, you should be, so that you're just getting familiar with what they're capable of doing, and honestly, more importantly, what they can't do. And so one of the other podcasters that I watch, and many of the other commentators, Demis Hassabis and Amadei and all those other folks, one of the things that they're talking about is you basically, if you interview a developer today, you expect them to use AI, right? At some point, you expect them to know where AI is helpful to them and where its boundaries are, where its limitations are. And the reason for this is you don't want to hire someone who is just checked out of it and saying, you know what, I'm just going to ignore this. It's just a fad. No, you really want to be hiring people who understand the significance of what's coming, know where it's useful and know where it isn't, because knowing what doesn't work can save you a tremendous amount of time. I remember back when I was still doing AI consulting regularly, there were clients that I had to let go because they really just wanted to spend time doing stuff that I said, that's not possible right now. You're going to waste your time. And they say, but I want to do it anyways. And I would say, I'm sorry, that's not a good use of your time, and it's not a good use of my time. If you really want to double down and waste a bunch of time and energy and money on something that I can tell you is not going to work, and I explain to you why it's not going to work, it's just better if we part ways. And so that happens, and we're seeing that trend in starting to pick up in the hiring space right now as well. And that includes marketing, that includes copywriting, that includes developers. So basically, if you want to keep up, get good at prompt engineering, use chatbots, find all the other tools out there that are useful to you and your productivity. Everyone is going to be expected to increase their productivity in the same way that everyone is just expected to have basic business competence with email, typing, internet usage, and that sort of stuff. So I hope that this insider information was helpful to you. Let me know what you think in the comments. Have a good one. Cheers.